When the campus security guard laughed at the black teenager for saying his dad worked for the federal government, he never expected 6 former FBI informants to silently emerge from the campus library and surround his patrol car. What happened next would expose 15 years of classified operations and change everything without a single word being spoken. Michael Brooks hadn't expected anyone to recognize the Federal Shield keychain on his backpack when he walked across Whitmore University's pristine quad that afternoon, still carrying his father's encrypted phone that had been buzzing with priority alerts all morning. The autumn leaves crunched under Michael's sneakers as he crossed the manicured pathways of Whitmore University. At 17, he looked younger than his years, his backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds dangling from his neck. The prestigious campus always made him feel slightly out of place. Too many marble columns, too many perfectly pressed polo shirts, too many sideways glances when he passed the clusters of students. He was cutting through to meet his mother at the administrative building when the white patrol car rolled up beside him. "Hey, kid." The window rolled down, revealing Officer David Thompson, a thick-set man in his 40s with close-cropped gray hair and cold blue eyes. His campus security uniform was crisp, his badge polished to a mirror shine. "What are you doing here?" Michael stopped, pulling out his earbuds. "Walking to meet my mum, she works here." "Yeah? Doing what?" Thompson's tone carried that particular skepticism Michael had learned to recognize, the kind that assumed he didn't belong. "She's the Assistant Director of Student Services." Michael kept his voice steady, respectful. His mother had taught him that much. Thompson stepped out of the car, his hand resting casually on his radio. "Student Services, huh? What's your name?" "Michael Brooks." "And you just walk around this campus whenever you want?" "My mom works here," Michael repeated, feeling the familiar tightness in his chest. "I have permission to be here." A small crowd was beginning to form, students slowing their pace, pretending to check their phones while watching the interaction. Michael noticed Tyler, his older cousin, across the quad with his camera phone already recording from behind a tree. "You know what I think?" Thompson stepped closer, his voice carrying across the open space. "I think you're looking for trouble, maybe looking to steal something from these nice kids' dorm rooms." "Sir, I'm just—" "Don't sir me, boy. Where's your ID?" Michael reached for his wallet, his hands shaking slightly. As he pulled out his driver's license, the Federal Shield keychain on his backpack caught the afternoon sunlight. Thompson's eyes narrowed as he spotted it. "What's that supposed to be?" "It's nothing. Just a keychain." "Looks like you're trying to impersonate federal law enforcement. That's a felony, kid." Michael's jaw tightened. The keychain had been a gift from his father 3 Christmases ago, before the man had disappeared into whatever classified world he inhabited. "It's not impersonation. My dad works for the government." Thompson actually laughed, a harsh, mocking sound that echoed across the quad. "Your dad works for the government? What's he do, sweep floors at the post office?" The watching students chuckled nervously. Michael felt heat rise in his cheeks. "He works for the federal government in law enforcement." "Sure he does." Thompson's laugh grew louder. "Let me guess. He's FBI, CIA, maybe he's the president's bodyguard." "He's a federal agent," Michael said quietly, his voice barely audible. "A federal agent?" Thompson slapped his knee theatrically. "You hear that, folks? This kid's daddy is a federal agent." He turned to the growing crowd of onlookers. "I've been in law enforcement for 22 years, and I've never heard anything so—" "Is there a problem here?" The voice came from behind Thompson, calm, authoritative, female. Michael looked up to see his mother, Sarah Brooks, approaching with quick, purposeful steps. At 42, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had fought for every position she'd ever held. Her dark hair was pulled back in a professional bun, her blazer impeccable despite the late hour. "Ma'am, we're just having a conversation with your son about his suspicious behavior on campus." Sarah's eyes flashed dangerously. "Suspicious behavior. He's walking to meet me as we arranged. He was also making false claims about his father being a federal agent. That's impersonation of a federal officer, which is not what happened here." Sarah's voice carried the authority of someone who had spent years dealing with bureaucrats and bullies. "Michael, get in the car." "Now wait just a minute. Officer Thompson." Sarah read his name tag deliberately. "I know exactly who you are, and I know exactly what this is. My son has every right to be on this campus, and if you have any further questions, you can direct them to the Dean of Students, who happens to be my direct supervisor. Thompson's face reddened. Ma'am, I don't care who you work for. When someone makes false claims about federal law enforcement— What false claims? Sarah stepped closer, her voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. Are you saying my husband doesn't work for the federal government? I'm saying this kid is lying about his daddy being some kind of super agent. Sarah stared at him for a long moment. Around them, more students had gathered, their phones out recording everything. Tyler had moved closer, his camera capturing every word. Officer Thompson, Sarah said finally, you have no idea what you're talking about. She turned to Michael. Come on, baby, we're done here. As they walked away, Thompson called after them, This isn't over. I'm going to check out this federal agent story, and when I find out it's all lies, we're going to have another conversation. Michael climbed into his mother's car, his hands still shaking. Through the windshield, he could see Thompson talking into his radio, his face animated with anger, and something else. Obsession. Mum, Michael said quietly, why can't we just tell people what Dad really does? Sarah started the engine, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. Because, baby, some secrets are kept for good reasons, and some people aren't ready for the truth. As they drove away, neither of them noticed Thompson writing down their license plate number, or the way his eyes followed their car until it disappeared around the corner. The first confrontation was over. But Thompson's investigation was just beginning. The Brooks family lived in a modest two-story house in Oakwood Heights, a middle-class neighborhood about 15 minutes from Whitmore University. The house was neat but lived in, with a small front yard that Sarah maintained herself and a two-car garage that had been converted into a home office years ago. Michael sat at the kitchen table, pushing food around his plate while his mother moved through her evening routine, grading papers, checking emails, occasionally glancing at her son with concern. You've barely touched your dinner, Sarah observed, setting down her laptop. I'm not really hungry. Sarah sat across from him, her expression softening. Talk to me about what happened today. Michael set down his fork. It's just, why do I have to lie about Dad? Why can't I just tell people what he does? Because we don't know what he does, Sarah replied carefully. Not exactly. But you know it's important. You know it's dangerous. Sarah was quiet for a moment, remembering. Robert Brooks had been gone for 8 months this time, his longest deployment yet. The man who had kissed her goodbye on a cold February morning had left behind only a secure phone number, a bank account that never ran dry, and instructions to tell no one about his work. Your father's job requires absolute secrecy, she said finally. Not just for his safety, but for ours. Then why does Thompson get to humiliate me? Why does everyone get to think Dad's a fake? Before Sarah could answer, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen and frowned. It's Dean Morrison, this late? She answered on the second ring. Hello, sir. Michael watched his mother's expression change as she listened to the voice on the other end. Her jaw tightened, her free hand clenching into a fist. I see, she said finally. Yes, I'm aware of the incident. No, sir, Michael was not acting suspiciously. Yes, I understand your concern, but what do you mean background check? Michael leaned forward, trying to catch his mother's eye. Sir, with all due respect, my family's personal information is private. If Officer Thompson has concerns about security, he can file a formal report through proper channels. I understand. Yes, I'll be in your office first thing tomorrow morning. She hung up, her hands trembling slightly. What was that about? Michael asked. Thompson went to the dean. He's demanding they run a background check on our family. He claims you might be a security risk because of the false statements about your father. Michael's stomach dropped. Can he do that? He's trying to. Sarah's voice was tight with controlled anger. He's also requesting access to personnel files, student records, anything connected to our family. What are we going to do? Sarah stood, pacing to the window. Outside, the street was quiet, suburban, peaceful, with streetlights casting long shadows across empty sidewalks. But something felt different tonight. Watched. We're going to handle this the right way, she said. I have contacts in the university administration, people who know our family, who trust us. But what if he keeps pushing? What if he finds out about Dad's real job? He won't find anything. Sarah's voice carried a certainty that Michael didn't feel. Your father's work is classified at levels Thompson can't access. His records are sealed, compartmentalized. Michael joined her at the window. You're scared. It wasn't a question. Sarah nodded slowly. Not of Thompson, but your father left very specific instructions about what to do if anyone started digging into his background. What kind of instructions? Sarah pulled out a different phone, one Michael had never seen before. It was smaller than her regular iPhone with no visible brand markings. There's a number I'm supposed to call, an emergency contact. Are you going to call it? Not yet. Your father said this was only for genuine emergencies, life or death situations. Michael thought about Thompson's obsessive anger, the way the man's eyes had followed their car. Mom, I think this might qualify. Sarah looked at her son, really looked at him. At 17, Michael had his father's steady gaze and quiet intensity. He also had his father's instinct for danger. Maybe you're right, she admitted. But let's see what tomorrow brings first. Maybe Thompson will let this go. They both knew he wouldn't. Across town, in a small apartment above a hardware store, Officer David Thompson sat at his kitchen table surrounded by papers, photographs, and a laptop screen full of search results. He'd been working for 4 hours straight, following every digital trail he could find connected to the Brooks family. What he'd discovered frustrated him. Robert Brooks appeared in public records, marriage license, mortgage documents, tax filings. But beyond that, the man was a ghost. No employment history, no social media presence, no criminal background, no military service records that Thompson could access. It was as if Robert Brooks existed just enough to be legal, but not enough to be real. Thompson opened another beer and stared at the photo Tyler had posted on social media, the moment Michael had mentioned his father being a federal agent. The kid's face showed no signs of deception. No nervous tics, no guilty expressions. Either Michael Brooks was an exceptionally good liar, or he genuinely believed his father worked for the federal government. Thompson had spent 22 years in law enforcement. He knew the difference between a kid making up stories and a kid telling the truth as he understood it. Which meant one of two things. Either Robert Brooks really was some kind of federal agent, or he'd been lying to his own family for years. Thompson preferred the second option. It fit his worldview better. He pulled up the campus security system on his laptop, scrolling through footage from the past 6 months. If Robert Brooks was a fake, Thompson would find the evidence. And when he did, he'd make sure the whole Brooks family paid for making him look like a fool in front of half the student body. He took another drink and kept searching. In the Brooks household, Sarah tucked Michael into bed like she hadn't done since he was 12 years old. The gesture felt necessary tonight, a return to simpler times when the biggest threat in their world was a monster under the bed. Mom? Michael's voice was small in the darkness. Yeah, baby. Do you think Dad's okay? Wherever he is. Sarah kissed his forehead. Your father is one of the strongest, smartest men I've ever known. Whatever he's doing, whoever he's protecting, he's handling it. I wish he was here. So do I. After Sarah left, Michael lay awake staring at the ceiling. His father's keychain sat on the nightstand, the federal shield catching moonlight from the window. Such a small thing to cause so much trouble. He thought about Thompson's laughter, the way the other students had joined in. The humiliation burned in his chest like acid. Tomorrow, he decided, he would find a way to prove his father was exactly who he claimed to be. He had no idea that decision would nearly get him killed. Officer David Thompson had always been good at finding things that didn't want to be found. During his 12 years with the Detroit Police Department, he'd built a reputation as a thorough investigator, the kind of cop who pulled threads until something unraveled. The problem was, he'd never learned when to stop pulling. 3 days after the incident with Michael Brooks, Thompson sat in his cramped security office, reviewing everything he'd gathered. The walls around him were covered with printouts, photographs, and handwritten notes connected by red string, like something from a conspiracy theorist's fever dream. At the center of it all was a single question. Who was Robert Brooks? Thompson had requested official records through proper channels and hit classified walls at every turn. Robert Brooks had a social security number, a credit score, utility bills, and tax returns. But any deeper investigation triggered automated responses. Information restricted, authorized personnel only. Contact supervising agency for clearance. That phrase, the supervising agency, had appeared 17 times in Thompson's searches. He'd never seen anything like it. David? His supervisor, Chief of Security Margaret Walsh, appeared in his doorway. At 55, Walsh was a former police captain who ran campus security with military precision. She looked concerned. Can I have a word? Thompson quickly shuffled some papers over his investigation materials. Of course, Chief. Walsh closed the door and sat down. I've been getting some unusual calls about you. What kind of calls? The Dean's office wants to know why you've been requesting access to personnel files for the Brooks family. Student records, background investigation authorizations. Thompson leaned back in his chair. Just doing my job, Chief. Kid made some suspicious claims. I'm following up. Following up, David, you've submitted 14 separate information requests in 3 days. You've contacted the FBI, the Department of Justice, and something called the Office of Personnel Management. And they all gave you the same answer. No access, no information, contact supervising agency. So why are you still pushing? Thompson's jaw tightened. Because something doesn't add up. This Robert Brooks character doesn't exist in any system I can access. Either he's a very careful criminal or what? Or he really is some kind of federal agent and they've scrubbed his records. Walsh stared at him. And if that's true, what exactly do you plan to do about it? Find out what kind of agent, what agency, what he's hiding. David. Walsh's voice carried a warning. You need to let this go. Why? Because some bureaucrat in Washington says I can't ask questions? Because you're becoming obsessed. Look at this office. Look at yourself. She gestured at the papers covering every surface. When's the last time you went home? When's the last time you worked on anything else? Thompson realized he couldn't remember. The Brooks investigation had consumed him completely. Chief, if there's a security risk on this campus, the only security risk I see is a security officer who's lost perspective. Walsh stood up. I'm ordering you to stop this investigation, close the file, move on. You can't order me to stop doing my job. I can order you to do your job properly. And right now your job is campus security, not playing detective with conspiracy theories. After Walsh left, Thompson sat alone in his office, staring at the wall of information he'd assembled. 3 days of work, hundreds of hours of research, and he was further from answers than when he started. But he'd learned one important thing. Robert Brooks was protected by layers of classification that Thompson had never encountered in 22 years of law enforcement. That level of protection didn't happen by accident. That evening, Thompson drove through Oakwood Heights, learning the rhythms of the Brooks family. Sarah left for work at 7:30 a.m. and returned around 6 p.m. Michael walked to the bus stop at 7:45 a.m. for school, came home around 4:00 p.m. The house itself was unremarkable, middle-class suburban, well-maintained but not expensive. No security system that Thompson could identify, no signs of unusual wealth or government protection. If Robert Brooks was some kind of high-level federal agent, his family lived like normal people, which made Thompson even more suspicious. He parked across the street and called an old contact from his Detroit days, Detective Ray Morrison, who'd moved on to federal task force work. Ray, it's Dave Thompson. I need a favor. Dave, how's the campus security gig treating you? It's fine. Listen, I'm trying to run down a background check on someone, and I keep hitting classified walls. Ever seen anything like that? Depends. What kind of walls? Thompson described the responses he'd been getting. Ray was quiet for a long moment. Dave, who are you investigating? Just a guy. Claims to be a federal agent, but something doesn't smell right. What's his name? Robert Brooks. The silence stretched so long that Thompson thought the call had dropped. Ray, you there? Dave, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Stop this investigation, right now, today. What? Why? Because the kind of classification you're describing, that's not normal federal agent protection. That's intelligence community. Deep cover. The kind of people who don't exist in any database because they can't exist. Thompson's heart started racing. You mean like CIA? I mean like people who work for agencies that don't have names. People who do things that never happened in places that don't exist. Holy shit. Dave, if this guy is who I think he is, and you keep pushing this investigation, you're going to wake up some very dangerous people, the kind who solve problems by making them disappear. Thompson looked at the Brooks house where warm light glowed in the kitchen windows. What am I supposed to do? Just pretend I never saw anything? That's exactly what you're supposed to do. Forget Robert Brooks. Forget his family. Go back to checking student IDs and writing parking tickets. I can't do that, Ray. This family could be a security risk. What if what? What if you're wrong? What if Robert Brooks really is protecting this country in ways you can't imagine? What if his son was telling the truth, and you've just spent 3 days trying to compromise a federal operation? Thompson hadn't considered that possibility. In his mind, Robert Brooks was either a fraud or a criminal. The idea that he might be exactly what his son claimed, a genuine federal agent doing genuine federal work, had never seriously occurred to him. Ray, how do I know for sure? You don't. That's the point. When someone's records are classified at that level, it's because you're not supposed to know. The system is working exactly as designed. After the call ended, Thompson sat in his car staring at the Brooks house. Inside, he could see Sarah helping Michael with homework at the kitchen table, a scene of perfect suburban normalcy. But Ray's words echoed in his mind. People who work for agencies that don't have names. Thompson had spent his career dealing with criminals, addicts and petty bureaucrats. He'd never encountered anything like this level of federal classification. Part of him wanted to follow Ray's advice, walk away, forget the whole thing, go back to his normal routine. But a larger part of him couldn't let go. He'd been humiliated in front of dozens of students. He'd been told to back down by his supervisor, warned off by his contact, blocked at every turn by federal bureaucracy. Someone was going to give him answers. He started the engine and drove home, already planning his next move. If official channels wouldn't tell him who Robert Brooks was, Thompson would find another way. He had contacts in private investigation, people who specialized in finding information that wasn't supposed to be found. It would cost money he didn't have, but Thompson was past caring about the expense. The Brooks family thought they could hide behind federal classification and bureaucratic walls. They were about to learn that David Thompson didn't give up easily. What Thompson didn't know was that his investigation had already been noticed by people far more dangerous than he could imagine. His phone calls, his database searches, his information requests, all of it had been logged, analyzed and flagged by automated systems designed to protect Robert Brooks's identity. Somewhere in a windowless building in Virginia, an analyst was writing a report about a campus security officer who'd become a potential threat to an ongoing operation. The report would reach Robert Brooks within 12 hours. And then things would get very complicated very quickly. Michael first noticed the white patrol car following his bus on Thursday morning. It stayed 3 vehicles back, matching every turn from Oakwood Heights to Westfield High School. When the bus pulled into the school parking lot, the car continued past. But Michael caught a glimpse of Officer Thompson behind the wheel. By Friday, the surveillance had become obvious. Thompson parked across from the school during lunch, making no effort to hide his presence. Students began pointing and taking pictures. Michael's friends started asking questions he couldn't answer. "Dude, why is that security guard stalking you?" asked Jake Martinez, sliding into the seat next to Michael during 4th period study hall. "He's not stalking me. He's just paranoid." "About what?" Michael couldn't explain without revealing more about his father than he was allowed to share. It's complicated, but the situation was becoming less complicated and more dangerous by the hour. That Friday afternoon, Sarah received a call that changed everything. "Mrs. Brooks, this is Principal Henderson at Westfield High. I need you to come in for a meeting." "Is Michael in trouble?" "Not exactly. But we've received some concerning reports from campus security at Whitmore University. They're questioning Michael's presence in various locations, suggesting he might be involved in suspicious activities." Sarah's blood went cold. "What kind of suspicious activities? I'd rather discuss this in person. Can you be here within the hour?" The meeting took place in Henderson's office with the principal, the school counselor, and a woman Sarah didn't recognize, someone from the district's security department. "Mrs. Brooks," Henderson began, "we've been contacted by Officer Thompson from Whitmore University Security. He's expressed concerns about Michael's behavior and has requested that we monitor his activities here at school." "Monitor his activities for what?" The district security representative, Ms. Patterson, opened a folder. "Officer Thompson has filed a report suggesting that Michael may be involved in identity fraud, specifically impersonating or claiming false connections to federal law enforcement." "That's absurd. He's also raised questions about your family's background, specifically the lack of verifiable information about your husband's employment." Sarah felt the familiar surge of protective anger. "My husband's employment is none of Officer Thompson's business, or yours." "Mrs. Brooks," Henderson said gently, We're not trying to invade your privacy. But when a law enforcement officer raises security concerns about a student, Officer Thompson is a campus security guard who became obsessed with my family after a minor incident. He has no authority over my son's education. Ms. Patterson leaned forward. Actually, Mrs. Brooks, we've verified Officer Thompson's credentials. He's a former Detroit police officer with 22 years of experience. His concerns carry significant weight. And what exactly is he concerned about? He believes your family may be using false identities, that your husband may not be who he claims to be. Sarah stood up. This meeting is over. Mrs. Brooks, please sit down. You need to focus on education, not harassment. My son is an honor student with no disciplinary record. He's never been in trouble, never caused problems, never given anyone reason for concern. Except for the claims about his father, Ms. Patterson said quietly. What claims? That his father is a federal agent. Officer Thompson has been unable to verify this information through normal channels. Sarah stared at the three educators. Are you seriously telling me that my son is being investigated because he told the truth about his father's job? We're telling you that we can't verify the truth of that statement. And when a law enforcement officer raises questions, then verify it. Sarah's voice was ice cold. Call the federal government. Ask them about Robert Brooks. Ms. Patterson and Henderson exchanged glances. We've tried. The responses we've received are unusual. Unusual how? Classified. Restricted access. Contact supervising agency. Sarah realized that Thompson's investigation had spread beyond campus security. He'd managed to get the school district involved, turned Michael's education into a security matter. What exactly are you asking me to do? Henderson spoke carefully. We need documentation of your husband's employment, something official that we can verify independently. And if I can't provide that, then we may need to consider whether Michael's continued enrollment is in the school's best interest. The threat was clear. Prove Robert's identity or lose Michael's place at school. Sarah walked out of the meeting without another word. That evening, she called the emergency number Robert had given her. The phone rang once. Sarah. The voice was unfamiliar, calm, professional, slightly electronic. Someone using voice modulation software. I need to speak with Robert. That's not possible right now. What's the nature of the emergency? Sarah explained about Thompson, the school district, the escalating investigation into their family. The voice listened without interruption. How long has this been going on? 6 days. And you're calling now because they're threatening Michael's education, because this man won't stop, because I don't know what else to do. Silence. Then, we're aware of the situation. It's being handled. What does that mean? It means Officer Thompson's investigation will be discontinued. The school district will receive clarification about your family's status. The situation will be resolved. How? That's not your concern. Your concern is protecting Michael until this is over. How long will that take? 48 hours, maybe less. Sarah felt a chill. What's going to happen to Thompson? Nothing permanent. But his questions are going to be answered in a way that will discourage further inquiry. The line went dead. Sarah sat in her kitchen, holding the silent phone, wondering what she'd just set in motion. Robert had warned her that his work involved people who solved problems efficiently and permanently. She'd always assumed he meant foreign threats, international criminals, enemies of the state. She'd never imagined those same people might turn their attention to a campus security guard in Michigan. Across town, Thompson was having his own conversation with his private investigator contact. Dave, I found something, but you're not going to like it. What kind of something? The kind that suggests you should drop this investigation immediately. Thompson gripped his phone tighter. Just tell me what you found. Robert Brooks has been flagged by multiple federal agencies as a protected identity. Not just classified, protected. The kind of protection reserved for people in active witness protection or deep cover operations. So he is a federal agent. He's something. But Dave, the flags on his file, they're not normal federal employee protections. These are the kind of warnings that appear when someone is being actively protected by intelligence services. CIA? Could be CIA, could be NSA, could be something that doesn't have a public name. Thompson felt vindicated. So the kid was telling the truth. The kid was telling the truth about something. But Dave, listen to me. My contact who ran this search. 20 minutes after he accessed Brooks's file, he got a visit from 2 federal agents. They told him to close the file, forget what he'd seen, and never speak of it again. Thompson's satisfaction evaporated. What kind of agents? The kind who don't show identification, the kind who don't give names, the kind who make problems disappear. Are you saying? I'm saying I'm out, Dave. I'm closing this investigation, deleting these files and pretending this conversation never happened. And you should do the same. The line went dead. Thompson sat alone in his apartment, surrounded by his investigation materials, finally understanding the full scope of what he'd stumbled into. Robert Brooks wasn't just a federal agent. He was the kind of federal agent who didn't officially exist, and Thompson had spent a week trying to expose him. For the first time since this began, Officer David Thompson was genuinely afraid, but fear wouldn't stop him. If anything, it convinced him that he'd been right all along. The Brooks family was hiding something important, something dangerous, and tomorrow he was going to force them to reveal what it was. Michael knew something was wrong the moment he saw Thompson's patrol car parked outside Westfield High on Monday morning. The officer wasn't trying to hide this time. He was sitting in plain view of the main entrance, making his presence unmistakable. "Your stalker's back," Jake observed as they walked toward the school building. "He's not my stalker. Dude, he's been following you for a week. That's literally the definition of stalking." Michael pulled out his phone and texted his cousin Tyler. "Thompson's at my school. Something's about to happen." Tyler's response came immediately. "On my way, keep your phone recording." First period passed normally. Second period was interrupted by an announcement. "Michael Brooks, please report to the main office immediately." Michael gathered his books, ignoring the curious stares of his classmates. In the hallway, he passed a window overlooking the parking lot and saw Thompson talking to Principal Henderson near the main entrance. The trap was being set. In the office, Henderson looked uncomfortable. "Michael, Officer Thompson would like to speak with you. Your mother has been contacted and is on her way." "Do I have to talk to him?" "He's requesting your cooperation in clearing up some confusion about your family background." Through the office window, Michael could see Thompson approaching the building. The man looked different today, more focused, more determined, also more unstable. "Principal Henderson, I haven't done anything wrong." "I know, Michael. Just answer his questions honestly, and this should all be resolved quickly." But Michael had learned enough about Thompson to know that honest answers wouldn't satisfy him. The man wasn't looking for truth. He was looking for ammunition. Thompson entered the office with the confident stride of someone who believed he held all the cards. "Michael, good to see you again." "Officer Thompson." Michael kept his voice neutral. "I've been doing some research on your family, very interesting results, sir. Your father, Robert Brooks. Turns out he's quite the mystery man." Principal Henderson shifted uncomfortably. "Officer Thompson, perhaps we should wait for Mrs. Brooks." "That's okay, Principal Henderson. Michael and I are just having a friendly conversation." Thompson sat down across from Michael, his eyes never leaving the teenager's face. "Tell me about your father's work, Michael." "I told you before. He works for the federal government." "What agency?" Michael hesitated. His father had never given him a specific agency name, had never provided details he could share with strangers. "I don't know the exact agency." "You don't know where your own father works?" "He's not allowed to tell me specific details." Thompson smiled, not a pleasant expression. "How convenient. A federal agent who can't prove he's a federal agent because his work is classified." "That's how classified work functions, sir." "Is it?" "Because I've been a police officer for 22 years, Michael. I've worked with FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, Secret Service. Every federal agent I've ever met could verify their employment through proper channels. Maybe you haven't met agents who work on classified operations." Thompson's smile widened. "Maybe I haven't. Or maybe your father isn't what he claims to be." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Michael felt his face flush with anger, but his father's training kicked in. "Stay calm. Don't reveal information. Wait for backup." "Officer Thompson," Principal Henderson interjected, "I'm not comfortable with this line of questioning without a parent present. We're almost finished." Thompson leaned forward. "Michael, I want you to call your father right now." "Sir, call him right now. If he's really a federal agent, he should be able to clear this up with a single phone call." Michael's classified operations. As they walked toward the door, Thompson called after them, "This isn't over. I know what your husband really is." Sarah turned back one final time. "No, Officer Thompson. You have no idea what my husband really is, but you're about to find out." They left Thompson standing in the principal's office, surrounded by his scattered papers and failed phone calls, finally understanding that he'd declared war on an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't reach, and couldn't defeat. But Thompson's investigation had gone too far to stop now. That afternoon, he would make a decision that would escalate the situation beyond anyone's control. Michael's stomach dropped. His father had been completely unreachable for 8 months. The emergency number Sarah had called wasn't something Michael could access. "I can't reach him right now." "Can't? Or won't?" "He's not available for personal calls during work hours." Thompson stood up, his voice rising. "Because he doesn't exist. Your father is either a fraud, a criminal, or a figment of your imagination. That's enough." The voice came from the doorway. Sarah Brooks entered like a force of nature, her face set in controlled fury. Behind her was Tyler, his phone already recording. "Mrs. Brooks," Henderson said with obvious relief, "thank you for coming so quickly." "Officer Thompson." Sarah's voice could have frozen water. "What exactly are you doing to my son?" "I'm trying to get some honest answers about your husband's supposed federal employment." "Supposed?" Thompson pulled out a folder thick with papers. "I've conducted an extensive investigation into Robert Brooks. What I've found is very interesting." Sarah remained standing, positioning herself between Thompson and Michael. "And what did you find?" "I found a man who doesn't exist in any verifiable database. No employment history, no government records, no evidence of federal service." "Did you also find the classification warnings, the restricted access notifications, the contact supervising agency responses?" Thompson's confidence faltered slightly. "Those could be fabricated. By whom? Who has the power to fabricate federal classification levels across multiple agencies?" "Someone with access to government systems. Someone running an elaborate con." Sarah laughed, a sound with no humor in it. "You think my husband has hacked into federal databases to create a fake identity as a federal agent? I think your husband has been lying to you for years about what he really does." The room went silent. Michael watched his mother's face, saw something dangerous flicker in her eyes. "Officer Thompson," Sarah said quietly, "you have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't I? Then prove me wrong. Call your husband right now. Have him verify his employment." "I can't do that." "Because he doesn't exist." "Because he's in the middle of an operation that I'm not allowed to interfere with." The words exploded out of Sarah with more force than she'd intended. Thompson's eyes lit up with predatory satisfaction. "What kind of operation?" Sarah realized her mistake immediately. "I've said too much." "No, you've said exactly enough. What kind of operation requires a man to be completely unreachable for 8 months? What kind of federal work keeps a husband away from his family with no contact?" Michael stood up. "Stop harassing my mother." Thompson whirled on him. "Sit down, kid. The adults are talking." "I'm not sitting down while you call my father a liar." "Your father is a liar, and I'm going to prove it." Thompson pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "This is Officer David Thompson, Whitmore University Security. I'm requesting immediate federal verification of employment for Robert Brooks, Social Security number." He rattled off the number from his files. Michael and Sarah exchanged glances. Sarah shook her head slightly, a warning to stay quiet. Thompson listened to the response, his face cycling through confusion, frustration, and growing anger. "What do you mean, unauthorized inquiry?" "I'm a law enforcement officer conducting a legitimate investigation." "No, I don't have security clearance." "What do you mean, refer to supervising agency?" He hung up and immediately dialed another number. "FBI Field Office." "This is Officer Thompson. I need to verify the employment of a suspected federal agent, Robert Brooks." "What? What kind of classification?" Another hang-up, another number. "Department of Justice?" "Officer Thompson, badge number 4471. I need verification. You can't tell me anything? Why not?" Tyler captured every moment on his phone. Thompson's growing desperation, his increasingly frantic calls, the way his voice rose with each rejection. By the 5th call, Thompson was shouting, "Someone is going to tell me who Robert Brooks is. I don't care about your classifications. I don't care about your protocols. This is a security matter." Principal Henderson stood up. Officer Thompson, I think you should... I should what? Give up? Let this family continue their charade? Thompson turned back to Michael, his face flushed with anger and something that looked like madness. You want to know what I think? I think your father abandoned you. I think he's been gone for months because he's not coming back. I think your mother has been lying to you about his classified work because she's too embarrassed to admit she married a deadbeat who ran out on his family. The accusation hit Michael like a physical blow. He'd had the same fears late at night when his mother thought he was asleep. What if his father really had just left? What if the classified work was a story to protect a 17-year-old from the truth about abandonment? But before Michael could respond, Sarah stepped forward with a calm that was more terrifying than anger. Officer Thompson, she said softly, you just made a very serious mistake. What mistake? You've confirmed that multiple federal agencies have classification protocols protecting my husband's identity. You've demonstrated that his records are restricted at levels you can't access. You've proven that Robert Brooks is exactly what my son said he was, a federal agent whose work requires absolute secrecy. Thompson's face went pale as he realized the trap he'd walked into. More importantly, Sarah continued, you've done all of this in front of witnesses while being recorded in a public venue. You've harassed a minor, made unfounded accusations against a federal employee, and attempted to compromise an ongoing classified operation. Tyler held up his phone. Got every word. You can't use that recording without permission, Thompson started. Actually, we can. Michigan is a one-party consent state for recordings. And this recording shows a law enforcement officer attempting to intimidate a family into revealing classified federal information. Thompson looked around the room, suddenly realizing how isolated he'd become. Principal Henderson was staring at him with open dismay. Tyler was still recording. Michael was watching him with a mixture of pity and disgust. I was just trying to verify. You were trying to satisfy your obsession. And now you've created evidence of your own misconduct. Sarah helped Michael gather his books. We're leaving. Principal Henderson, if Officer Thompson returns to this school or contacts my son again, I'll be filing harassment charges and requesting a federal investigation into his attempts to compromise classified operations. As they walked toward the door, Thompson called after them, This isn't over. I know what your husband really is. Sarah turned back one final time. No, Officer Thompson. You have no idea what my husband really is, but you're about to find out. They left Thompson standing in the principal's office, surrounded by his scattered papers and failed phone calls, finally understanding that he'd declared war on an enemy he couldn't see, couldn't reach, and couldn't defeat. But Thompson's investigation had gone too far to stop now. That afternoon, he would make a decision that would escalate the situation beyond anyone's control. The video exploded across social media within hours. Tyler had posted it with the caption, Campus cop tries to force teenager to prove his dad is a federal agent. Gets destroyed by every federal agency in America. By 8 p.m., it had 750,000 views and was trending on 4 platforms. Thompson sat in his apartment watching himself become increasingly unhinged with each federal rejection. The comments were devastating. This man is literally having a breakdown over a black family. Every single federal agency told him to back off, and he still wouldn't quit. Someone's about to lose their job and pension. The second-hand embarrassment is real. Thompson's phone rang constantly. His supervisor, reporters, university administration, friends asking if he'd lost his mind. He ignored them all. But the video had done something else. It had attracted attention from people Thompson hadn't expected. At 9:15 p.m., his doorbell rang. Thompson opened it to find 2 men in dark suits, clearly federal agents based on their bearing and the way they filled his doorway. Officer Thompson? Agent Martinez, Agent Johnson, FBI, we need to talk. Thompson's pulse spiked. About Robert Brooks? About your investigation into Robert Brooks. Thompson led them to his living room, acutely aware of investigation materials still scattered across every surface. The agents noted everything. Photos, charts, timeline, documents. Impressive work, Agent Martinez said, examining the wall of evidence. Very thorough. Thank you. Unfortunately, also very problematic. Agent Johnson sat down. Officer Thompson, your investigation has triggered security alerts across multiple federal systems, database searches, information requests, phone calls, all flagged by protocols designed to protect classified operations. So Robert Brooks really is a federal agent. The agents exchanged glances. What we're about to tell you is classified. You cannot repeat this information. Thompson leaned forward eagerly. Robert Brooks is a federal agent working deep cover on a domestic terrorism investigation. His assignment involves infiltrating extremist groups, planning attacks on federal facilities. Thompson felt vindicated and horrified simultaneously. Domestic terrorism. The classification around his identity isn't just operational security, it's national security. The people he's investigating have killed federal agents before. Jesus, I had no idea. Agent Martinez pulled out a tablet. Your investigation has come dangerously close to compromising Agent Brooks's cover. We've been forced to implement emergency protocols. What kind of protocols? The kind that involve relocating families and creating new identities. Thompson realized the magnitude of his mistake. I've ruined his mission. Not yet, but you've created a situation requiring immediate resolution. Agent Johnson leaned forward. We need your complete cooperation in containing this situation. What do you need? First, cease all investigation activities immediately. Second, destroy all materials related to Robert Brooks. Third, never speak of this matter again. What about the video? The public attention? We'll handle media management, but we need your word this ends here. Thompson nodded frantically. Yes, absolutely. Good. Agent Martinez stood. This conversation never happened. We were never here. You never received classified information about Robert Brooks. I understand. If you violate this agreement, you'll be prosecuted for obstruction of a federal investigation and endangering national security. After the agents left, Thompson spent the night destroying his investigation materials, burning papers, deleting files, dismantling his wall of evidence. But as dawn broke, troubling questions emerged. If Robert Brooks was such a crucial agent, why was his family living unprotected? Why hadn't anyone explained the situation earlier? Why let him continue an investigation that could compromise national security? Most disturbing, how had the FBI agents known exactly what materials he possessed? By morning, Thompson reached a chilling conclusion. Someone had been watching his investigation from the beginning. Someone had allowed him to continue gathering information, making calls, creating public incidents, all while monitoring his every move. Thompson realized he'd been played. Instead of reporting to work, he drove to Detroit to visit Detective Ray Morrison, his old partner who now worked federal task forces. Ray, I need you to verify something. Thompson described his investigation, the federal responses, and the visit from Agents Martinez and Johnson. Ray listened, his expression growing increasingly concerned. Dave, describe these agents again. Thompson provided detailed descriptions. Dave, there are no agents named Martinez and Johnson assigned to FBI domestic terrorism units in this region. Thompson's blood went cold. What? I checked while you were talking. No agents matching those descriptions, no operations involving Robert Brooks. Then who were they? Ray made several calls while Thompson waited. Each conversation increased his alarm. Dave, bad news. There's no federal agent named Robert Brooks in any database my contacts can access. No domestic terrorism investigation matching your description. Thompson felt reality shifting. Then who did I meet last night? Someone who went to extraordinary lengths to convince you Robert Brooks is legitimate. But why? Because your investigation was getting too close to something they wanted hidden. Thompson drove back to Michigan with new understanding. Robert Brooks wasn't a federal agent protected by classified operations. He was something else entirely, something worth elaborate deception to protect. That afternoon, Thompson made a decision that would change everything. He was going to force a direct confrontation with Robert Brooks and get answers to questions that had consumed his life. All he needed was the right leverage. Michael Brooks would be that leverage. Thompson's plan was simple: intercept Michael after school, detain him for questioning, and force the boy to contact his father. If Robert Brooks was really a federal agent, he'd have emergency protocols. If not, Thompson would expose the truth. Thompson positioned himself along Michael's route home from debate practice, in an area with no cameras or witnesses. When he saw the teenager approaching, Thompson stepped out of his patrol car. "Michael, hold up." Michael stopped immediately, wary. "Officer Thompson, I need to talk to you. It's important." "About what?" Thompson forced a reasonable tone. About your father. I may have been wrong about him. Michael kept his distance. Okay. I've done more research, talked to federal contacts. Your dad might really be who you say he is. Good. But I need to verify information for my official report. Just to close this properly. What information? Thompson pulled out his phone. I need you to call your father, right now. Emergency contact. If he's legitimate, he'll have family emergency protocols. I can't reach him during operations. Michael, this is important. My investigation has stirred up federal attention. If your father is legitimate, he needs to know. Michael hesitated. Something felt different about Thompson today. More focused, more dangerous. I need to get home. Actually, you need to come with me. Thompson's tone shifted, becoming harder. I'm detaining you for questioning in connection with a federal investigation. You can't detain me. I haven't done anything. Obstruction of a federal investigation is serious, kid. Michael turned to run, but Thompson was faster. The officer grabbed Michael's arm and pulled him toward the patrol car. Let go. Stop resisting and this will be easier. Michael tried to break free, but Thompson was stronger. Within moments, the teenager was handcuffed and pushed into the back seat. Where are you taking me? Somewhere we can have privacy. Thompson drove toward the industrial district. Michael's phone buzzed with texts, but his hands were cuffed behind his back. This is kidnapping. This is a federal investigation. You're not federal law enforcement. Thompson's jaw tightened. I'm working with federal authorities now. Your father's case has been escalated. Thompson pulled into an abandoned warehouse complex. Isolated buildings surrounded by chain-link fence. No cell coverage. He parked behind the largest warehouse and turned off the engine. Okay, Michael. You're going to call your father and he's going to answer questions. I told you I can't reach him directly. Thompson got out and opened the back door. Then you'll give me another way. He pulled Michael out roughly. The teenager stumbled on the gravel. There has to be emergency contact, someone who can reach him. Thompson produced bolt cutters and cut the warehouse chain. Within minutes, they were inside the dark, empty building. Sit down. Michael remained standing, scanning for exits, escape routes. Your mother will be looking for me. Your mother can't help right now. Thompson pulled out his phone and started recording. State your name. I want to call my mother. You'll call your mother after you help me contact your father. Michael realized Thompson had moved beyond rational investigation into complete breakdown. The man's eyes were too bright, movements too erratic. What do you want from my father? I want him to tell me who he really is, what agency, what operation. And if he won't, Thompson stepped closer. Then you and I stay here until he cooperates. Michael looked around the warehouse, huge, dark, filled with shadows. No one knew where he was, no phone signal. Thompson seemed beyond reason. You're making a serious mistake. The only mistake was believing your family's lies. What lies? Your father isn't a federal agent, Michael. He's something else, something requiring elaborate deception to protect. Michael felt genuine confusion. I don't understand. Neither do I, but I'm going to find out. Thompson dialed the emergency number Sarah had used. The phone rang once. Yes. The voice was calm, electronically modified, completely professional. This is Officer David Thompson. I have Michael Brooks. Silence. I need to speak with Robert Brooks immediately. That's not possible. Make it possible. I have his son, and I'm not releasing him until I get answers. The silence stretched so long Thompson thought the connection dropped. Officer Thompson, the voice said finally, you've made a serious error. The only error was trusting federal lies. Robert Brooks is going to tell me the truth. What truth are you seeking? Who he really is, what he does, why an entire federal bureaucracy protects a man who doesn't officially exist. Another pause. Officer Thompson, look around the warehouse. Thompson spun in a circle. The building appeared empty. I don't see anything. Look more carefully. Thompson squinted into shadows. Slowly, shapes emerged from darkness, figures in tactical gear, moving with perfect silence. 6 of them positioned at every exit. They had been there the entire time, invisible, until they chose to be seen. How? Thompson's voice was barely a whisper. Officer Thompson, you are surrounded. Release Michael Brooks immediately. Thompson looked at Michael, who seemed as shocked as he was. The teenager clearly hadn't expected rescue. Who are you people? We're the people who protect Robert Brooks' family. The warehouse lights blazed to life. Thompson could see the tactical team clearly. Professional operators with military precision and serious firepower. "Put down your weapon and step away from the boy." Thompson looked down and realized he was holding his service pistol, though he didn't remember drawing it. "I'm a police officer." "You're a kidnapper. Put down the weapon." Thompson's hand shook as he placed the gun on concrete. Around him, the tactical team moved closer with coordinated precision. "Michael, are you injured?" "No, sir, I'm okay. We're getting you out of here." As the team secured Thompson and moved to free Michael, the teenager had one overwhelming realization. Whatever his father really was, he commanded resources far beyond normal federal law enforcement. Thompson had stumbled onto something much bigger than identity fraud, and now he was about to discover exactly what that meant. Robert Brooks arrived 45 minutes later. Thompson, zip-tied and sitting on concrete, watched a black SUV pull up. The man who stepped out looked remarkably ordinary. Average height, graying hair, jeans and gray t-shirt. But when Robert walked into the warehouse, every tactical team member straightened to attention. "Status report." "Target secured, no injuries, minimal exposure," the team leader responded. "The boy is unharmed." Robert's eyes found Michael first. "You okay, son?" Michael nodded, still processing everything. "Dad, how did you know where to find me?" "We've been monitoring Thompson's movements since his investigation began." Robert turned to Thompson, who stared up at the man he'd pursued for weeks. "You're Robert Brooks." "I am." "You're really a federal agent." "I am." Thompson felt his worldview cracking. "What agency?" Robert knelt so they were eye level. "Officer Thompson, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest government levels." Thompson waited. "For 18 months I've been running deep cover operations targeting domestic terrorist networks. Not infiltrating them, hunting them." "Hunting?" "This network has killed 12 federal agents, 16 police officers, 37 civilians in attacks across 6 states. They're planning something larger. Coordinated attacks on federal buildings, infrastructure, possibly biological weapons." Thompson's mouth went dry. "My team and I track them, eliminate their leadership, disrupt operations. We exist in gray areas between FBI, CIA, and military special operations." "Gray areas?" "We do things that can't be officially sanctioned. We go places federal agents can't go. We eliminate threats the justice system can't touch." Robert's voice remained calm, but Thompson saw something deadly in the man's eyes. "My family thinks I'm a federal agent working classified operations. That's close enough to keep them safe and give them plausible deniability." "Plausible deniability for what?" "For the fact that I kill people, Officer Thompson. Bad people, dangerous people, people who threaten American lives. But I kill them nonetheless." The warehouse was silent except for distant traffic. Thompson stared at Robert Brooks, finally understanding what he'd discovered. "You're an assassin." "I'm a protector, but yes, assassination is part of my job description. That's why your records are classified. My records are classified because what I do can't exist officially. The moment my work becomes public, it becomes ineffective." Thompson realized his investigation hadn't just compromised a federal operation, it had exposed a black ops program operating outside normal government channels. "What happens now?" Robert stood. "That depends on you." "What do you mean?" "You've discovered something threatening national security. We have several options for dealing with that threat." Thompson didn't like several options. "The cleanest solution is witness protection. You disappear, get new identity, start over. David Thompson dies in an accident. You become someone who never knew the Brooks family. And if I refuse?" Robert's expression didn't change. "Then we implement a more permanent solution." Thompson understood. He was looking at a man who killed for a living, who had resources and authority to make problems disappear completely. "How long in witness protection?" "Permanently. You never contact your old life, never return to Michigan. Never speak of what you've learned." Thompson felt the weight. Lose everything he'd known or die. "What about my job? Pension? Apartment?" "David Thompson will die in a warehouse accident tonight. Body won't be recovered. Accounts closed, possessions sold, life officially ended." "And Michael? Your family?" "My family will be relocated with new identities. I'll resume my mission with enhanced security." Michael spoke for the first time since his father arrived. "Mr. Thompson, why couldn't you just let this go?" Thompson looked at the 17-year-old he'd kidnapped and terrorized. Because I was scared, Michael. Scared of being wrong, scared of not mattering, scared that a black teenager knew something about the world I didn't. The honesty surprised everyone, including Thompson. Your father really is a hero, Thompson continued. And I was too proud to accept it. Robert made the final decision. Officer Thompson, here's what happens. You accept witness protection. In exchange, you help us stage your death in a way that doesn't raise questions. What do I do? Nothing. Just disappear. 2 hours later, David Thompson's patrol car was found abandoned near Huron River with signs of struggle. Security footage showed him arriving alone, but no footage of departure. His body was never recovered. The man who had been David Thompson was driven to a secure facility in Virginia, where he would spend 3 months learning to become James Mitchell, a maintenance worker in Phoenix, Arizona. Robert Brooks returned home to pack his family's belongings for another relocation. But before leaving Michigan, he sat with Michael for a conversation that would define their relationship forever. Son, what you learned tonight, how do you feel about it? Michael thought carefully. I always knew you did dangerous work. I just didn't know how dangerous. And now that you do, I'm proud of you and scared for you. That's fair. Dad, how many people have you killed? Robert was quiet for a long moment. Enough to keep you safe. Not so many that I've lost sight of why I do this work. Do you ever regret it? I regret that the world requires people like me, but I don't regret protecting people like you. Michael nodded, understanding his father wasn't just a federal agent or assassin. He was a man who had chosen to bear the weight of protecting others, even if it meant carrying darkness that could never be shared. Where will we go now? Oregon. New names, new life, new start. Will you keep doing this work? For a while until the mission is complete. And then? Robert smiled. A real smile, not the careful expressions Michael had grown used to. Then I come home for good. Be the father you deserve. As they prepared to leave Michigan forever, Michael understood his father really was exactly what he'd always claimed. A hero. The methods were more complex, the truth darker than a 17-year-old had imagined. But the core truth remained. Robert Brooks protected people, and he would do anything, including sacrifice his own identity, his own life, to keep his family safe. Thompson's obsession had revealed the truth. It just wasn't the truth he'd expected to find. The Morrison family was building their new life in Portland, Oregon. Robert, now calling himself David Morrison, had taken a consulting position with a private security firm, legitimate work using his skills without the moral complexity of his previous assignments. Sarah, now Patricia Morrison, worked as an educational consultant for Portland School District, developing programs for at-risk youth. Michael, now Marcus Morrison, was a senior at Lincoln High School, where he'd joined debate team and discovered a talent for advocacy that reminded him of defending his father's honor. But adjustment wasn't easy. On a Thursday evening in March, Marcus sat on their front porch staring at Portland's skyline and thinking about the life they'd left behind. Mind if I join you? His father sat beside him, noting the careful distance Marcus maintained. Since the warehouse incident, their relationship had been polite but strained. How was school? Fine. Making friends? Some. They sat in comfortable silence. Robert understood his son was processing not just the move, but the truth about his father's work. Marcus, I know this is hard. Do you? Yes. So I know what it's like to lose everything and start over. Marcus turned to look at his father. Is that what happened to you, before us? Robert had never shared his personal history. When I was 23, I had a different name, different life. I was engaged, had a normal job, lived in a small Colorado town. What happened? I witnessed something I wasn't supposed to see. Government corruption involving powerful people. I had a choice. Help build a case or watch them destroy innocent lives. You helped. I helped. And when it was over, the people I'd exposed decided I was a problem needing elimination. Marcus had never heard this story. So you got a new identity. David Morrison is my fourth identity. Each time I've had to start over, become someone new, build a different life. Then who are you really? Robert thought about the question. I'm your father. That's the only identity that's ever mattered to me. But what if you have to disappear again? What if someone else comes looking? Then we handle it together, all of us. Marcus wanted to believe that, but trust was more complicated now. Dad, in the warehouse when Thompson had me, I thought you might choose your mission over saving me. I would have chosen you, every time. Really? Robert turned to face his son directly. Marcus, I've given up everything for this work. Friends, homes, pieces of myself, but I would never give up my family. Their conversation was interrupted by Patricia calling them for dinner. As they stood, Marcus spoke quietly. Dad, I'm proud of what you do. I understand why it's important, but I'm scared that someday the work will take you away permanently. Robert put his hand on his son's shoulder. Marcus, there are other people who can do the work I do. You and your mother only have one husband and father. Inside, Patricia had prepared a meal that felt almost normal. Pot roast, potatoes, vegetables. They sat around their new dining table, trying to rebuild family rhythms that had been shattered. I got offered a permanent position today, Patricia announced. Full-time with benefits, working on district-wide educational reform. That's wonderful, Robert said. You'll take it? I'm not sure. It would mean we're really staying here, really starting over completely. The question hung in the air. Were they building a new life or waiting for the next crisis? Mom, Marcus said, what do you want to do? Patricia looked at her husband and son, two men shaped by circumstances beyond their control, who had learned to adapt and survive. I want to stop running. I want to build something that lasts. Robert reached across the table and took her hand. Then we stay. We build something that lasts. What about your work? Marcus asked. I've been offered a position training federal agents in deep cover operations. Regular hours, normal schedule, no travel. You'd take a desk job? Robert smiled, the first genuine smile Marcus had seen from his father in months. I'd take a job that lets me come home every night to the people I love. Over the following weeks, the Morrison family began building the life they'd never been able to have as the Brooks family. Robert took the training position and discovered he enjoyed teaching young agents about survival and protection. Patricia accepted the permanent job and threw herself into educational reform. Marcus slowly made friends and found his voice in debate tournaments. But their new beginning faced an unexpected test in May. Marcus came home from school, visibly upset. What's wrong? Patricia asked. There's a kid at school claiming his dad is CIA. Same kind of stuff I used to say about Dad, but this kid, I don't think he's telling the truth. Robert looked up from his laptop. What makes you think that? Because he knows too much. He talks about specific operations, mentions classified details. If his father really was CIA, he'd never know those things. Patricia and Robert exchanged glances. Their son had learned to recognize the difference between legitimate secrecy and fabricated stories. What are you going to do? Robert asked. Nothing. It's not my problem. But it bothers you. Marcus nodded. Yeah, because I know what it's like to have people not believe you. But I also know what real classified work looks like. Robert realized their ordeal with Thompson had taught Marcus valuable lessons about truth, deception, and the weight of family secrets. Son, you've learned something important about discretion and judgment. What do you mean? You know the difference between protecting legitimate secrets and exposing dangerous lies. That's a skill that will serve you well. That evening, as Marcus worked on homework at the kitchen table, he looked up at his parents. You know what's weird? What? Patricia asked. I miss being Michael Brooks sometimes. Even with all the problems Thompson caused. Why? Because Michael Brooks had a father who was a hero. Marcus Morrison just has a dad who teaches other people to be heroes. Robert set down his coffee. Marcus, the work I do now is just as important as what I did before. Maybe more important. How? Because instead of stopping one threat at a time, I'm teaching dozens of agents how to stop hundreds of threats. The impact is multiplied. But it's not as exciting. Robert laughed. Son, I've had enough excitement for several lifetimes. What I want now is to be present for your life, your achievements, your future. Marcus considered this. So no more secret missions, no more disappearing? No more disappearing, I'm done being a ghost. Promise? Robert looked at his son, then at his wife, seeing the hope and fear in both their faces. I promise. Marcus Morrison graduated as valedictorian of Lincoln High School on a warm June morning in Portland. As he stood at the podium delivering his commencement speech, he looked out at the audience and saw his parents in the third row, his father in a simple suit, his mother wiping away tears, both of them present and proud. Sometimes, Marcus told his classmates, we think heroism means extraordinary actions in extraordinary circumstances. But real heroism is simpler than that. Real heroism is choosing to protect the people you love every single day in whatever way you can. He paused, making eye contact with his father. Real heroism is coming home. After the ceremony, the Morrison family drove to their favorite restaurant, a small Italian place where they'd become regulars, where the staff knew their names and their orders, where they felt like they belonged. So, Patricia said over dinner, Northwestern in the fall, political science major. Any thoughts about what comes after? Marcus had been thinking about this question for months. I want to work for the State Department. Foreign service, maybe. Travel the world, help solve international problems. Robert raised an eyebrow. That's dangerous work sometimes. I learned from the best. Just remember, Patricia said, whatever you choose to do, choose it for the right reasons. What are the right reasons? Robert answered. To protect people who can't protect themselves. To make the world safer for families like ours. To be the kind of person who comes home at the end of the day. As they walked to their car after dinner, Marcus noticed a man in a dark suit watching them from across the street. For a moment, old fears flashed through his mind. Was someone hunting them again? But Robert had noticed too, and his reaction was different this time. Instead of tension, there was calm assessment. Friend or threat? Marcus asked quietly. Friend. That's Agent Parker. He works for my current department. He's making sure we stay safe. We still need protection? We always need protection. But now it's from people who want to keep us safe, not people trying to find us. That night, Marcus sat in his room packing for a summer internship at the Portland City Attorney's Office. Among his belongings, he found the Federal Shield keychain that had started everything with Thompson, the small piece of metal that had caused so much trouble. He was about to throw it away when his father appeared in the doorway. Keeping that? I don't know, it caused a lot of problems. Robert sat on the bed. It also told the truth. Sometimes the truth causes problems, but that doesn't make it less important. What should I do with it? Keep it, but understand what it represents now. What does it represent? It represents a son who loved his father enough to defend him when no one believed. It represents a family that survived because they trusted each other. It represents the truth, even when the truth is complicated. Marcus attached the keychain to his new college backpack. 3 months later, Marcus was working late at the city attorney's office when he got a call from his father. Marcus, turn on the news, Channel 8. Marcus found a television and switched to the local news. The anchor was reading a breaking story. Federal authorities announced today the successful conclusion of Operation Silent Shield, an 18-month investigation that prevented planned terrorist attacks on federal buildings in 6 states. The operation resulted in the arrest of 37 suspects and the seizure of enough explosives to level downtown Portland. Marcus watched, understanding that this was his father's old mission, the work Robert had been doing when Thompson's investigation forced their relocation. His phone buzzed with a text from his father. My team finished what we started. No one else will have to run because of these people. Marcus smiled, finally understanding the full scope of what his father had accomplished. The work Robert had done, the darkness he'd carried, the sacrifices he'd made, had protected countless innocent families from the terror the Morrison family had experienced. That evening, Marcus called his parents. Dad, I saw the news. And I'm proud of you, not just for the mission, but for knowing when to stop, for choosing us. Choosing you was the easiest decision I ever made. What happens to Thompson? James Mitchell, I mean? Robert was quiet for a moment. He's building a new life in Arizona, working as a school maintenance supervisor. Apparently he's good with kids, helps them with homework, mediates playground disputes. Do you think he's happy? I think he's found peace. Sometimes that's more important than happiness. Will he ever be able to come back? No. David Thompson died in that warehouse. But James Mitchell gets to live. That's more than a lot of people in his situation receive. Do you ever regret giving him that chance? No. Everyone deserves the opportunity to become better than they were. 6 months later, Marcus was home for Christmas break when he found his father in the garage, organizing old case files for permanent storage. Need help? Sure, just boxing up the past. Marcus helped his father pack away documents, photos, and reports from cases that would never be made public. "Dad, do you miss it? The fieldwork?" Robert considered the question. "I miss the clarity. When you're in the field, the choices are simple. Protect innocent people, stop bad people. Teaching is more complex." "How?" "Because I'm not just training agents to follow orders. I'm teaching them to make moral choices under pressure. That's much harder. But more important, much more important." As they worked, Marcus found a file labeled Brooks, Robert, Family Protection Protocols. Inside were dozens of photos of their old house, Michael's school, Sarah's workplace, detailed security assessments, escape routes, emergency procedures. "You really were protecting us all along. Every day. Even when I wasn't there." "How?" "Your mother never knew. But there were always people watching your house, your school, the routes you traveled. My team made sure our family was never truly alone." Marcus understood that even during the worst moments with Thompson, even when they felt most isolated, his father's colleagues had been silently guarding them. "Are we still being watched?" "Different kind of watching now. Less intensive, more routine. But yes, my former colleagues keep an eye on us." "Why?" "Because what I did, what I knew, doesn't just disappear when I retire. There will always be people who might want to hurt my family to get to me." "Doesn't that scare you?" Robert smiled. "Son, I spent 15 years hunting the most dangerous people in the world. The idea that they might come looking for me is actually comforting." "Comforting?" "Because it means I was good enough at my job to be worth their attention. And because I trust my former colleagues to keep my family safe. What if something happens to you? Then you take care of your mother, finish your education, and become the man I know you can be. But Marcus, I'm not going anywhere. I've got too much life left to live with the people I love." On Marcus's 21st birthday, his father gave him a gift that surprised him. A framed photo of Michael Brooks receiving a debate trophy at Westfield High School. "Why this photo?" "Because that's the moment I realized my son was going to be okay. No matter what happened with Thompson, no matter what truth came out about my work, you were strong enough to handle it." "How did you know?" "Because in that photo, you're standing up for something you believe in. That's what heroes do. They stand up even when it's hard." Marcus studied the photo. "Dad, do you think Thompson was evil?" "No. I think he was scared, confused, and too proud to admit when he was wrong. Those are human failings, not evil ones." "Do you forgive him?" "I forgive him for being human. I don't forgive him for endangering my family." "There's a difference." "What's the difference?" "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means choosing not to let someone else's failures define your future." That night, Marcus wrote in his journal, "Today I realize that my father isn't just a hero because he protects people from danger. He's a hero because he protects our family from becoming bitter, angry, or afraid. He carries the darkness so we can live in the light." 2 weeks later, Marcus was accepted to Georgetown University's School of Foreign Service with a full scholarship. When he called to tell his parents, his father's response surprised him. "I'm proud of you, son. But more than that, I'm grateful." "Grateful for what?" "Grateful that you're choosing to serve your country in the light, where people can see your work and celebrate your achievements. You're getting to be the kind of public servant I always wished I could be." "Dad, your work was just as important." "My work was necessary. Your work will be noble. There's a difference." 5 years later, Marcus Morrison graduated from Georgetown and was accepted into the State Department's Foreign Service Officer program. At his graduation ceremony, both his parents were there, older now, grayer, but more at peace than Marcus had ever seen them. During the reception, a stranger approached their table. "Excuse me, are you the Morrison family?" Marcus tensed slightly, old habits from childhood still present. "I'm Agent Sarah Chen, FBI. I worked with your father during his transition to civilian life." Robert stood and shook her hand. "Agent Chen, good to see you." "I wanted to thank your family," she said, turning to Marcus and Patricia. "The intelligence your husband provided during his final operation saved hundreds of lives. But more than that, the agents he's trained have gone on to prevent dozens of attacks." "Thank you," Patricia said simply. Agent Chen looked at Marcus. "Your father talks about you constantly. He's very proud." "I'm proud of him too. He tells everyone that his greatest accomplishment isn't the missions he completed or the threats he eliminated. It's raising a son who chose to serve his country in the diplomatic corps." After Agent Chen left, Marcus turned to his father. You really say that? Every chance I get. Why? Because it's true. Marcus, I spent my career ending things, ending threats, ending operations, ending lives when necessary. You're going to spend your career building things, building relationships between countries, building peace, building a better world. We both serve our country. Yes, but you get to serve it in the light. People will know your name, celebrate your achievements. Thank you publicly for your work. I never had that luxury. Do you regret it? Robert looked around the room full of young diplomats, their families, their bright futures ahead of them. I regret that the world needed people like me, but I don't regret being one of them. Someone has to do the dark work so people like you can do the bright work. Dad, Marcus, the greatest honor of my life isn't any medal or commendation I received. It's knowing that my son will make the world better in ways I never could. That evening, as the Morrison family drove home through the streets of Washington, D.C., Marcus looked out at the Capitol building lit up against the night sky. Dad, can I ask you something? Anything. Do you think Thompson, James Mitchell, ever found peace with what happened? Robert was quiet for a moment. I hope so. Peace is what we all deserve eventually. Even people who hurt us? Especially people who hurt us. Carrying anger forever just gives them power over our future. What about the terrorists you stopped? Do you hope they find peace? I hope they find justice. Peace comes after justice, not before. What's the difference? Justice means accepting consequences for your actions. Peace means choosing not to repeat those actions. Patricia, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Marcus, your father taught me something important during all those years he was away. What? That love isn't about being together every moment. Love is about knowing someone would do anything to come home to you, even if it takes years. Even if it takes years. Marcus understood that his parents had built something rare, a love strong enough to survive secrets, separation, and the kind of danger most families never face. Are you happy? Marcus asked. Really happy? Robert and Patricia looked at each other across the front seat, a silent conversation passing between them. We're at peace, Robert said finally, and for people like us, peace is better than happiness. Why? Because happiness comes and goes. Peace is something you build and protect. How do you protect peace, as Patricia answered? By choosing every day to trust each other, support each other, and never take each other for granted. And by remembering, Robert added, that the best way to honor the people who didn't make it home is to make sure the people who did make it home never have to leave again. Ambassador Marcus Morrison stood in his office at the U.S. Embassy in Vienna, looking out at the city where he'd just successfully negotiated a complex international agreement. At 32, he was one of the youngest ambassadors in State Department history. His phone rang. It was his father. Congratulations on the treaty signing. I saw it on the news. Thanks, Dad. I wish you could have been there. I was there in spirit. Besides, this is your moment. You earned it. Dad, I've been thinking about something. What's that? Do you remember when I was a kid and you said heroes come home? I remember. I understand now what you meant. It's not just about physical homecoming, it's about emotional homecoming. It's about being present for the people you love. That's exactly right. Dad, I want you to know you came home, really came home. You've been present for every important moment in my life since Portland. Robert's voice was thick with emotion. Thank you, son. That means everything to me. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Marcus, more than you'll ever know. After the call ended, Marcus looked at a photo on his desk. The Morrison family at his college graduation. All of them smiling, all of them together, all of them safe. On the back of the photo, in his father's handwriting, were the words, "Heroes don't just protect people from danger. They protect people's ability to dream." Marcus smiled, understanding that his father had given him the greatest gift possible, the freedom to choose his own path, serve his country with honor, and build a life in the light. That evening, Marcus called his mother. Mom, I've been thinking about having Dad speak at the Foreign Service Academy graduation next year. Really? About what? About service, about sacrifice, about the difference between working in the shadows and working in the light. He'd be honored. But Marcus, are you sure? His past is exactly why he should speak. These new diplomats need to understand that their freedom to serve openly comes because people like Dad served quietly. I'll ask him. Mom? Yes? Thank you. For what? for keeping our family together when everything was falling apart, for believing in Dad when no one else would, for teaching me that love means fighting for the people you care about. Marcus, your father and I fought for you because you were worth fighting for. You still are. 6 months later, Robert Morrison stood before 200 graduating Foreign Service officers at the State Department. His speech was simple but powerful. You are about to serve your country in the light, where your work will be public, your achievements celebrated, your contributions recognized. This is a tremendous privilege. But remember that your freedom to serve openly exists because others served quietly. Remember that diplomacy works because people you'll never meet did the hard things, the dark things, the necessary things that made peace possible. Your job is to build bridges. Their job was to clear the ground where those bridges could be built. Serve with honor, serve with integrity, and always remember, the greatest victory isn't defeating an enemy, it's coming home to the people you love. In the audience, Marcus wiped away tears, finally understanding the full scope of his father's legacy. Robert Brooks had spent 15 years protecting America in the shadows. David Morrison was spending his remaining years protecting America's future in the light. Both men were heroes. Both men had come home. That Christmas, the Morrison family gathered in their Portland home, the same house they'd bought 7 years earlier when they decided to stop running and start building. Marcus was home from Vienna. Patricia had been promoted to Deputy Superintendent of Schools. Robert had been named Teacher of the Year at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center. As they sat around the dinner table, Patricia raised her glass. "A toast," she said, "to the Brooks family who taught us how to survive, and to the Morrison family who taught us how to live." "To coming home," Robert added. "To staying home," Marcus finished. They clinked glasses, and for the first time in any of their lives, the future felt completely secure. Outside, snow began to fall on a quiet Portland street, where a family that had once lived in fear now lived in peace, where a father who had once been a ghost was now completely, undeniably present. In the distance, barely visible through the snowfall, a black SUV kept watch, not because the Morrison family was in danger, but because some heroes deserved to be protected by the people they once protected. The circle was complete, the mission was finished, the family was home.